Where did Mike go?
All right, Mr. Chairman, it looks like we are live on YouTube. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Hicks.
Here.
Senator Kinski.
Here.
Senator Steinmetz.
I can see her. I know she's here.
I see you.
Senator Steinmetz, are you here?
Here.
She's trying to decide whether she wants to answer or not.
You're not incriminated simply by being in the Appropriations Committee this afternoon, Senator Steinmetz.
Chairman Perkins.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Just as item of business, when we meet again, I think we'll meet again on adjournment because I think we've got to deal with that if we don't finish. And Mr. Vice Chairman, Senator Kinski, if you'll go ahead and conduct the one this afternoon if we meet on adjournment today, okay?
All righty, we'll do.
All right, thank you. The first bill for our consideration on the re-referral is Senate File 37. Let me get my technology back up to roll here, which is the Omnibus Water Bill. And that comes to us from Select Water Committee. And as a matter of convenience and happenstance, we have the chairman of Select Water, Vice President Hicks, with us today. So, Vice President Hicks, do you want to take us through? Senate File 37 for purposes of to discuss the appropriation?
I was actually assuming that this was going to go through the standing committee, seeing how they're the ones that already reviewed it in the committee, but I don't see Senator Boner here. And so we may have had some miscommunication. So in his absence, let me see if I can get in here.
There he is.
Here is Senator
There he is. Senator Boner, are you with us?
There he is.
You're on mute, Senator Boner.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, I think I was off in the Netherlands digitally there, but now I'm with you today. We also have Senator Cost, who's going to be floor managing the bill, and I believe Director Gephardt should be here. So I was going to let Senator Cost take the lead on this one, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
I don't see Senator Cost in here yet.
Okay, well,
there he is. He's showing up. Here, give us one more second.
And Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, and just point out that there was one amendment. I want to make sure that the committee is aware, especially our Select Water Committee Chairman, dealing with a request from the City of Lander. And there's some, I guess, confusion locally, to say the least. And the Select Water Committee is aware of that. At Senator Case's request, we went ahead and removed that ask from the City of Lander as they deal with some, I guess, some problems locally with that request, and just thought I'd let the committee know about that. And certainly if our Select Water Committee Chairman has any input on that, but just a heads up, that is a rare amendment that the Ag Committee made to that planning bill at the request of a local legislator who was affected by the potential project there. So just thought I'd make that aware. And without that being said, we have Senator Cost and Director Gephardt here, and they can go ahead and take you through.
All right, Senator Cost, you want to take, so all we're doing here is reviewing the appropriation, but we know a little bit about the bill and the appropriation. So yeah, I think the chairman of Ag elected to phone a friend, and you're the friend. So Senator Cost.
Well, thank you. I was beginning to think that they weren't going to allow me in, so I was kind of locked out. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to present to you Senate File 37 Omnibus Water Bill. I will go through it fairly quickly because I know you have a fairly large agenda, hitting the high spots, and then from there would also offer Director Gephardt if there's any questions you would have of him. In looking at the bill, of course, this is just the Omnibus Water Bill, and it goes through on the first project, Section 1, Level 1 Reconnaissance Studies, New Development, If you look at the bottom of page 2, you'll see that we have Hoback River Lander Water Master Plan. This is not the amendment one. The amendment comes later. Nordic Ranches Water Master Plan, Upton, Wheatland, Lake Hattie, and UW Water Research Program for a total, you'll see on the top of page 3, of $1,359,454. Then on section 2 on page 3, we have level 2 feasibility studies, new developments here. At the bottom of the page, you'll see there's the Bighorn Regional Transmission, Byron Rural Water Supply, Gillette Water Supply or System improvements, and Little Snake River Water Supply Phase 2 in Carbon County for a total of $586,000. Moving on down into level 3 or section 3, I'm sorry. It's a level 1 reconnaissance studies for rehabilitation. And at the bottom of the page, you'll see that we have the Highland Irrigation District. We have a master plan in Sublette County. With that, we have the Lander Ditches Rehabilitation, and that is the one that we have an amendment on. So that one will be with the amendment removed. The appropriations was $434,000, but $242,000 of that would be removed. Section 4. Section 4 is amended to read level 2 feasibility studies rehabilitation, and you'll notice on line 22, funds appropriated to the Highland Hanover ID pump station project, not obligated prior to July 1st of 2023, shall revert to Water Development Account 2. Funds appropriated to the LaPrelle Irrigation District Rehabilitation Phase 2 project, not obligated prior to January 1st of 2024, shall revert to Water Development Account 2. And down below that, you'll see that on line 5, on each of the following studies has been stricken. On line 6, added in on the Highland Hanover ID pump station study, and prior to the 2023 legislative session on the LaPrelle Irrigation District Rehabilitation Phase 2. At the bottom, you will see the appropriations are tallied out from Phase 2 at a total of $4,300,000 because of the 650 changed with the LaPrelle to $4,950,000 there. And so the total appropriation for I'm not saying that very well. The 2020 appropriation for section 4 was $725,000. So that's already been appropriated. The 2021 appropriation for section 4 is $4,300,000 to give us the $4,950,000 total. Below that, special conditions for the LaPrelle Irrigation District Rehabilitation Phase 2 study. The LaPrelle Irrigation District shall seek funding for the study from other sources. If the district obtains funding from any other sources, the district shall, to the extent possible, reimburse the commission for any costs previously expended for the study of this appropriation. Reimbursed funds shall be deposited into the Water Development Account 2. If the district obtains funding from other sources but is unable to reimburse the commission, the district shall complete the study using funding from any other source before using funding appropriated under this section.
So Senator Cost.
Yes, sir.
So as I look, so if you go back to page 6 on lines 20 and 21, you've got
Yes.
the LaPrelle allocation Phase 2. Is the $4,950,000 all for a study?
The $4,950,000 is for the rehabilitation of that project. It's
So help me out, because then we start talking about the study, and I'm trying to I'm trying to figure, so I'm confused as if why we're appropriating if we haven't got the study done yet. So, I mean, so maybe Director Gephardt, if you want to phone a friend, Director Gephardt, that'd be okay too.
I was going to say, I would refer that to Director Gebhardt and let him answer that question because it might be a little above my pay scale.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Brandon Gebhardt, Director of Water Development. The request for LaPrel is, it falls under the level 2, but if you'll remember, the LaPrel Dam was deemed to be at the end of its useful life. So what we're asking for here is a $4.3 million continuation on that project. And what that 4.3 million will go to is to further the conceptual design. We have done the study, we've developed a preferred alternative, and now we're jumping into the design and the permitting and some geotechnical work. So what we're anticipating is this 4.3 will get us to a $30 million or a 30% conceptual or preliminary design. It'll also provide some additional site investigation for geotech and take us down the road of permitting. But this also provides money for us and the consultant to go out and find additional funding sources. And just so you're aware, we have already applied for some federal funding for this project to help offset this $4.3 million. We've applied for roughly $3.23 million to help us with this project. There will be considerable money needed for the rehabilitation, but this is to continue the design and to help secure additional funding. If that answers your question, like great. If not, I can stand for more.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator Kinski.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear your question answered. I'm still puzzled why 4.3 million for the activities that you described. It sounds pretty expensive for planning, unless water projects are much more expensive to plan than I ever really understood. There's not some element of construction in here?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kinski, at this point, there is not. In all, we're anticipating about a $6 million design. Construction for the rehab of this, we're thinking it's in the $50 to $80 million range. This is a high hazard dam located outside of Douglas. The dam is failing. It's under orders from the SEO to limit storage. And told the preferred alternative is replacement dam for this dam. And this appropriation will take us down the design.
All right. Thank you. Senator Kinski, any follow-up? So, that's where we don't want to lose the dam. It'll wash out Natural Bridge. Then that canyon, it would be a disaster. Senator Boner, Mr. Chairman.
I'd just like to add I-25 onto that list of things that'll be washed out, Mr. Chairman. So it's pose a risk to life and property. And, this is something we did take a look at with the Ag Committee. Obviously, we had the situation in Goshen County. We are lucky to have found this situation before it was catastrophic. But, refer to our Select Water Committee Chairman as to what exactly the plan is. Obviously, we're leveraging federal funds here as well. So that's going to be a significant part moving forward.
Thank you. Senator Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gephardt, how much water are we holding back here on this dam? What do we got? What do we got? How big?
It's big.
Mr. Chairman, I forget, we've got Barry Lawrence on the line. I don't know if he can remember what this is, but as we continue, I will try to find that answer for what that volume is.
It's I can tell you the LaPrel Reservoir is a pretty good sized reservoir. It's this is on the, there's that kind of front range that you see just south of I-25 as you're headed between Glen Rock and Douglas. And it's on the back side of that. And so you have to actually, it's quite a lengthy kind of drive to get back in there, but it's a pretty good sized reservoir. And it's not like just it's It's, I'm trying to think, it's not the size of Wheatland Reservoir, but it's a good sized reservoir.
It's
Mr.
20,000
Chairman.
acre foot storage.
20,
sorry?
go ahead. I'm
20,000.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, 20,000 acre foot storage.
Okay. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, that would
Mr.
make it
Chair.
about the 38th largest reservoir in the state of Wyoming.
Mr. Chairman.
It's not a big reservoir in the context of
No.
Glendo, Seminole, Jackson Lake, Pathfinder. It's relatively small.
And,
Mr.
yeah.
Chairman.
Senator Kinski.
I noticed Senator Guru's heightened interest in this, the prospect of a dam failure, and I'd simply note that the last time there was a dam failure, Senator Guru ended up becoming a resident of the state of Wyoming. And I think we better fix this dam before something equally as calamitous befalls
So-
us.
Exactly.
So when at the end of the day, when we get done with the $6 million study, that tells me the project itself is going to be quite expensive. I'm just wondering, is this money's coming out of, is this coming out of water development? This is coming out of water development account 2, right?
Mr. Chairman, that's
Will
correct.
when we get to the actual reconstruction, will that come out of 2 or will it come out of 3?
Mr. Chairman, that kind of is yet to be determined. We don't even have the money in account 3 to fund something like this. So we anticipate that we're going to need some outside assistance for funding on this. And that's what we're starting to investigate at this point.
Okay, thank you. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the one you were looking at some FEMA money on, Director?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Steinmetz, that's correct. We've applied for the FEMA BRIC funding to offset some of this 4.3. And then we've got, we're investigating other funding sources that we could possibly use for construction when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you. Senator Hicks, did you have something you were gonna? The other question I have is, can you just run us through the account balances for Water 1, Water 2, and Water 3 after the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to. So there are 2 transfer requests within both this bill. There's one in this bill, and then there's another transfer request in the construction bill as well. But following those transfers and then funding everything that we've recommended, the Water Development Account 1 would have a little over 9 million remaining. Account 2 would have about $1 million remaining, and account 3 is roughly $25 million remaining. And this would be after all of our administrative costs, our agency budgets, and then all the non-project funding is taken out. So that would be the balance going into the next biennium.
Thanks. And did we raid Water Account 3 a few years ago for something?
Gillette, I believe, was money taken out of account 3 for
Okay.
Gillette.
For the Gillette to Madison project.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you.
And
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman,
Senator Kinski.
and isn't there a payback on the medicine project, or has it been paid back?
I don't think no, there's not a payback. Any other, so anyway, thank you. Senator Koss, we're back to you. Continue on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After moving through that, we move on down to section 5, which has on page 7, line 18, section 2, level 2 feasibility studies, new development. And if you come on down, there's part of the amended was in lines 8 on page 8. Funds appropriated to GRS SCJPWB pump station, Sweetwater and transmission, Lander test well study, and Little Snake River Valley Municipal Water. And on 13 through 18, you can see the Fontenelle Dam and the work on the Glendo. On down below that, in 21 through on page 8 through line 5 on page 9, we have the Little Snake River amendment a little bit further, saying the Snake River and the Fontenelle Dam infrastructure completions and Glendale Reservoir full utilization project studies. And then you get to the bills, and these are all appropriated in 2018. There was $4,155,000. There are no appropriations asked for on this in 2021. Section 5, time extension for level 2 feasibility studies, dams and reservoirs. We go on down to lines 4 and 5, the Shell Valley Storage Levitt Reservoir Project, I might add, in my district. The appropriated funds for that project not obligated prior to July 1st of 2021 shall revert to Water Development 3. We have a 6-year time extension, hopefully is granted for the Clear Creek storage, Norwood storage, Alkali Creek projects, and funds appropriated for those projects but not obligated prior to July 1st, 2024 shall revert. And then below that on the Shell Valley Storage Levitt Reservoirs project study, and prior to the 2023 legislative session on the Clear Creek storage. So we're asking for extensions on those. You go down to the bottom, I'm sorry, to the top of page 11, you will see the funding for that appropriated in 2015 was $9,200,000. There was no appropriation in 2018 and no appropriation in 2021. And moving on down is just the tail end of the bill, where it would be effective immediately upon completion. The amendment was to remove the Lander ditches. That was back up on, if I get to it quickly, just so that I can refer to that for you. I'll try to get there quicker than I'm getting there.
The verbiage is on page 4 and the
Page 4 and page
5.
5. Thank you.
Yeah.
And as Chairman Boner had said, and Director Gebhardt can say more if needed, there's some confusion as to ownership and all. And so until they can work that out between the city and the owners of the land, they don't want to lose their water rights. It makes a lot of sense what they're going through. So right now that becomes a kind of a contentious issue until they get it worked out there. But he did not want that to start without that settled. And so Senator Case asked for the amendment.
Thank you.
With
Thank
that,
you.
I will step back and allow you guys to ask questions, and I'll probably defer them to the director.
All right, Senator Hicks.
What are we doing with the 700,000 for the Clear Creek appropriation? What is that for?
Mr. Chairman, there is no appropriation, no additional appropriation.
So that's just
all of
carryover
those were
language from the last bill.
That's
All
correct.
right.
That was the original appropriation. All of those were just time extensions.
All right.
So a question about, as you go through the time extensions that, start on page 9 and go on to page 10. As we do those, are those extensions, is that still work going, or have the studies gone far enough along that they either know that it's feasible or not feasible, or where are we at on those projects that for which we're extending the time, and either something's not, and then if they're not finished, it's going to revert here at the end of the, but anyway,
Yep.
Director Gebhardt.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the status of those projects are really in the permitting stage.
Okay.
And for the Alkali Creek, for example, that will go to design. And then Clear Creek is going through some permitting and then to design. So those are
Okay.
progressing. It's just securing these appropriations so we can continue with the permitting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Senator Drew.
Thanks, Chairman. And I think, if Senator Boner or Senator Boner, or whoever wants to answer this question. I read through this and I know, we're in this fiscally constrained time. I look at what you've done about moving money forward and back and what you haven't appropriated and have. And I also know this is an investment. And so we don't want to cut back on investments at a time, just because we're looking at budget shortfalls. We need to invest. There are things we need to invest in. And I know water's one. And I understand that even for 20,000 acre feet of water, if it's going to flood a freeway and a whole bunch of stuff, it has to be done. Do you all feel, as the people that know, Senator Koss, Senator Boner, that what you've got here, that we can go out on the floor and say, hey, we've tightened this up as much as we can tighten it up right now. For investment costs, needs, and then the needs that we have to tighten our belt. Are we there with this? Am I missing something? Should we be, just your comments.
Senator Hicks.
Work. I just want to hear you tell me.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, along that lines, through the Select Water Committee, we had asked the Water Development Commission and the director and his staff to go through and do exactly what Senator Guru has asked. And we asked them to go through as the commission in the office and give us a priority of all the programs that they do, top to bottom, which are number one, number two, three, all the way down. And I think it went down to almost 25 or 30 priorities within the program. So they've looked at doing that. These projects, the way that commission works is they take applicants, and based on availability of funding, they will make recommendations to fund or not fund. So internally, and I think the director can talk to this, I think they have had 2 positions they didn't fill that come out of there. And I think at this point in time, they've got that priority list. We've told them to be ready. If there's reductions in the funding stream, that they're prepared to start reducing those programs. And so I hope that answers your question, Senator Guru.
I think so. Like I say, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that when we're out on the floor talking about it, you're talking to one of the few Democrats who likes dams. I got no problem with them. I think they're good. And I understand, like I say, this is an investment, and it's an investment in our future. And so I want to make sure, though, that we can look all our fellow members in the eye, because the question's going to come up. So I just wanted to hear a little talk. Thanks.
And one thing you might want to explain, that we have so many new members out there. When you get back on the floor, as part of the explanation, I think it'd be helpful if you explained the source of the funding into water accounts 1, 2, and 3, where that comes from and why it's there, so people will understand that it's not an appropriation out of the general fund. These are accounts that are set up and how they're fed, but it's going to get tighter and tighter. And so I'm glad you guys have started the lifting on prioritization, because it'll be that's going to be our life for the foreseeable future. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, usually we try to present the ratio of municipal to ag, so that folks know that there's a lot of municipal projects in these and have been through the years. And so I know Director Gebhardt has kindly provided that to us several times, but that might be another thing to remember when we are looking at these things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Gebhardt.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may offer another thought along those same lines. One of the things that we look at is the efficiency of putting these monies out on the ground. And we estimate that of our total appropriation to the program, our administration fee is about 7% of what we are appropriated, and then the remaining goes to projects on the ground. So 93% of these appropriations actually go to projects.
Thank you. Okay, members, any other questions Senator Cost, Senator Boner, Director Gephardt, any other comments?
No,
Committee,
sir.
Come on, committee, what's your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Move the, okay, and again, a second by Senator Steinmetz. Are there any, again, all we're doing is the appropriations. Are there any amendments to the appropriations? Okay, let's go ahead and call the roll then. I think we're ready for the question.
Call for the question.
Thank you. On Senate File 37, Senator Guru,
Aye.
Senator Hicks,
Aye.
Senator Kinski,
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz,
Aye.
Chairman Perkins.
Aye.
5 ayes.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that. Appreciate your attendance today and your testimony. And so Senator or Chairman Boner and Senator Cost, you guys have this on the floor. All right, thanks so much. Our next bill for consideration is please Senate File 45, monthly ad valorem tax revisions. And so this was by the Joint Revenue Interim Committee. Our revenue chairman still Senator Case?
I believe so.
Are we back?
There he is. There he is. We're just, they must be in the waiting room and they're admitting him. Our technology takes a minute. So.
Mr. Chairman, I am here. I will.
Okay, there you are.
Yes, sir.
There you go. You were just a disembodied voice a second ago, Senator Case. Welcome. So we're on Senate File 45.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, there are actually two bills we'll be looking at, 45 and 60. They both came out of the Revenue Committee. They deal with our transition to monthly ad valorem tax payments by our partners in the mineral industry.
And so you can help reconcile those for me. I thought it looked to me like they read into each other, but maybe not.
They do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, they actually do run into each other. What Senate File 45 does is take most of the non-codified language that we did last year, which was just session law, if you recall. It codifies it, and it would make it so that a taxpayer could look in the law and find out what their tax obligations are. It's also got some tweaks, but it basically is the arrangement that we left last year. Senate
so
Files.
if Senator Case, if I remember right, that only got us to, I can't remember. It seemed like it only got us about 5 years down the road or so, and then it kind of stopped. And so so we're going to continue on through explanation.
Yes, sir. And you are exactly right. It was a partial implementation by shifting you shifted 1 month the first year, another month, and we never even finished it out. We said we'd have to revisit it. It was fairly elaborate, but it is technically the law right now, but it is not codified. And so Senate File 60 was an alternative that more follows how taxes are done now. And the essence of it is it begins the collection, and I'm sorry I'm talking about both bills at the same time, but I think you just need to understand this if I can have leeway. And what it does is it really quite rapidly goes to the monthly implementation, but it leaves hanging out there the year of the arrearage. And if you recall, I know you know, Mr. Chairman, that we're doing this to move up the payments from our mineral friends to get the money received faster, basically to put ad valorem on the same basis as the severance taxes. And that's what we're trying to get to. And so these are both transitional mechanisms. The second one basically involves creating going immediately to monthly collection on the current year, but then having this past year hanging out, and it's because ad valorem runs behind, even on our own houses. I'm going to be paying in May the second payment on my 2016 valuation of my house that the county commissioners did the mill levy last September or August or something. So I think I got the notice in September, but it was on 2019. Minerals have the exact same issue. And both bills deal with trying to get them current. Both bills, they are in essence alternatives, and they cannot both leave the legislature, but we've had a working group that's been following this, quite the fan club. And the consensus is we keep both bills alive until the end of the session and make sure that 60 is in good shape, then we can get rid of 45. And if 60 were to go down for whatever reason, we'd have to be able to codify what we did last year. So there's a bit of maneuvering going on here. The committee added an appropriation to both of them of $1. We threw the ball into your court. You can see that for the money to the Department of Revenue to begin this implementation and transition. Senate File 60 has a kind of a loan program whereby counties are able to deal with their cash flow issues by getting money from the treasurer's office to cover their lack of receipts. Because when you go to a monthly basis but you're trying to catch up on that other basis, there's a cash flow issue with the counties. Staff, and I don't know if staff is in the waiting room, but Mr. Temke has been working very hard to estimate what that cash flow issue is. We think we've got it dialed in. Mr. Wilmart brought us some information about the education side and the fact that really that is education needs and cash flow are come through the LSRA, and I think he'll be able to discuss that. So, somewhere as Mr. Noble, I see he's been admitted, he might maybe have a better idea what the department's needs are under each bill. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to stay here and answer questions.
And so I appreciate that. Looking at 45, I don't see an appropriation in the bill.
I think there was one in the standing committee amendment. So you got it in the standing committee amendment.
All right. So we've got the standing amendment. All right.
Yeah. And it was just $1.
Okay. $1. All right. Does anybody want any further explanation on Senate File 45? And you have an appropriation of apparently of $1. Senator Kinski.
I'm good with everything except why the $1 appropriation to pull us into the dogfight. I'm curious. I still don't get that part.
Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. Chairman, our Department of Revenue has been very helpful in all this, but they have said, look, there's administrative impacts of doing this. We need to get a handle on them. They could venture a bold out guess. And I said, well, let's put $1 in, that'll get it to the appropriations, and you come and make your case. And so Mr. Noble is here to do exactly that.
All right. Thank you. Director Noble, we're glad to have you. Are you going to take this on, or are you going to punt to Craig? You're on mute, Dan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for reminding me. Dan Noble, Director of the Department of Revenue, and Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. The concern that we had is that, in fact, there will be administrative impacts on setting up the system to make this happen. We have asked the managed business solutions, or the people that actually write these programs for us and manage our system. We've asked them to create an estimate. Mr. Grenvik has provided them with the kind of the nuts and bolts of both Senate File 45 and Senate File 60 to see what they would look like as it relates to administration. And actually, Senate File 45, while it's already in place, right now the counties are currently handling those monthly payments, but the 45 actually directs us in 2023, I believe, to begin collecting the taxes rather than the counties doing so. That will involve us basically writing a system to accept the mineral tax rolls from the county and then begin billing those taxes back to the industry. So we'll have to create a fairly a different system than we have today for severance taxes. So it'll create a fairly expensive process. The problem is I just don't know exactly how expensive. It hazarding a guess, more than $1. It's going to be a lot more than $1. What we did for the statewide lodging tax last year was a $500,000 appropriation, and that came in fairly close. My guess is this is going to be substantially more than that because of the fact that we are writing a new system for it. So I would say it'll be somewhere close to $1 million. When we look at the Senate File 60, which also has a $1 appropriation in it, and I believe it's in the amendment as well, I think we're probably talking about $300,000 for that appropriation. And the reason for that, and the reason for the difference is, we're going to be collecting the ad valorem tax on exactly the same schedule in 2022 under Senate File 60 that we do in creating the value for severance tax. So the ad valorem tax will be on exactly the same forms. Really, the only issue is getting that money distributed back to the counties and providing them with the true up at the end of August of each year. So substantially less as far as administrative costs. We don't have near as much reprogramming to do, and in order to make it happen, we can actually use the existing form. So that if I had to hazard a guess today, 300 and probably $1 million, $1 million for 45 and 300,000 for Senate File 60. And we should have you an answer from the programmers probably sometime next week as to what those numbers will actually look like.
Okay, thank you. So Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Director Noble, and that was my question. If it's going to be on the same schedule as severance tax, it can't be that big. My question is, you throw out numbers. Have you run these past ETS, and are you working with them to figure out what that programming is going to cost, what it would look like? Or is these numbers just coming up internal with your staff? What engagement have you had with ETS on this issue?
Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, we are actually working with the vendor that actually wrote the program. ETS has not written the program, and we have given them kind of the outline of what changes will need to be made. They are processing that now. They are the company that originally wrote the code, and they're currently writing the statewide lodging tax, and they manage both the MTS and ETS systems for us today. So yes, we have asked them to create a quote for us, and as I believe next week is when we're supposed to receive that.
Senator Hicks, any follow-up? And I
think, but I'm not going to say it here, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. I think, Dan, I think that things that we've talked about. We've gone through some software system upgrades and changes with a lot of other very expensive ones with other agencies for their systems. And one of the things we're trying to do is trying to develop and at least have another set of eyes look on those things to make sure that your vendor's pencil is sharp enough to make sure the state's going to get value. And so in some respects, even if it's going to be developed outside, we're trying to make sure ETS is involved as if you would, if it was a construction project, it'd be the owner's rep. And so, so going back to that, I mean, are you, and typically, there's an application to ETS, and then you have to do a business case and so on and so forth. And they kind of say, are you going through that process, or is ETS not even participating at all?
Mr. Chairman, not currently. Obviously, this is a fiscal note. We're really trying to figure out what this is ultimately going to cost. Will it go through the business case process in order to get their buy-in on it? Certainly. I mean, they're going to have to be involved in that respect. But at this point, we were asked to say, will there be a fiscal impact associated with administration? And that's where we're at on it. No, it is not at ETS yet.
All right, thank you. Well, and it's not till 2023. It takes, there's a time. Senator Guru.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to amplify on that, I will say it. Senator Hicks, if you're looking, maybe I'll be there, maybe I won't. But I'll tell you what, if you want me to appropriate it, it's going to go through a process because this is why we hired Barry Dunn. This is why we ask ETS to do what they're doing. We want to set up a template where we can walk through and know that we're getting the best bang for the buck. Not frankly, just walking back to the usual suspects and saying, hey, write this on top of this. There's no one looking, there's no other sideboards. And that's challenging. And I know, who you're dealing with, but some other departments sometimes don't. And sometimes we've had some issues with that. And I know it's just something that all of us, we've been dealing with this for a little while, and we're really trying to get something going here that we can put across the board. So I really urge you in the strongest possible terms to use it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director. Director, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Grew, I agree with you. Really, all I'm doing at this point is responding to a fiscal note. What will be the impact associated with us taking this on? And we'll certainly go through that process, obviously. And quite frankly, when we hired MBS as the vendor to handle our maintenance agreement, this was through ETS's business case process. So we certainly understand how to deal with it, and we will go through that process.
Thank you, Dan. Any other? So we're still on. We've had a little bit of a free stream of consciousness discussion here going on, but so back on specifically on 45, is there any other discussion or questions relative to Senate File 45?
Call for the question.
Okay, I think we've moved the bill. Have we moved the bill? I don't think we've moved the bill yet. So, Senator Guru, you've moved the bill, and is there a second? Second by the Vice President and Senator Kinski. So
call for the question.
We'll call for the question. Let's go ahead and call the roll, Karen.
Chairman Perkins, I believe we might have someone who is intending to provide public comment. Would you like me to bring them into the room?
Sure, that's fine. I thought Mr. Greenvic was just keeping his head down, but now we have a member of the public. Bill Novotny. Commissioner Novotny, are you there?
Mr. Chairman, I am. I think you have control of my camera, but let me see if I can get that running.
I don't have that power, Bill.
All right, we got it up. Good afternoon, members of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Bill Novotny on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. Mr. Riemann is tied up over at the House Appropriations Committee. We just want to reiterate our support for moving this bill forward. We will leave the judgment on the appropriation to you, be it if you leave it at $1, we would. And Mr. Riemann's notes to me remind you that there was $500,000 that was tacked on to the ad valorem bill last year for the Department of Revenue. So we have moved money. But again, this is a strongly support from our association. And if there's any additional background that we can give on the bill, we'd just like to see this codified.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, just a little latitude, Bill, is the commissioners taking a position on 45 or 60?
Mr. President?
Go ahead, Bill.
Senator Hicks, in terms of ranking, 60 is our preference, but we look at 45 as our fail-safe. So if you could continue to advance this bill, but our preference is Senate File 60.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Commissioner Novotny? Commissioner, anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to provide our input.
Thank you. Senator Case, come back to you before anything else, Senator Case, we're on 45?
I think you've got it, Mr. Chairman. I think it was appropriate that we had this come to you, though. You need to have this discussion, even if it's more of a heads up than anything.
Okay, thank you. And you're right. We do appreciate that. there's a substantial impact with these bills, so appreciate it. So with that, Karen, anybody else that I've missed in public comment?
No, sir, I believe that was it.
Okay, I think now we can call the roll unless Mr. Grenvik has something. He doesn't. Let's go ahead. Oh, there he is. So Craig's shaking his head no. He's got to make sure I want to make sure he's in his office today. So anyway, he is. So go ahead, Karen.
All right, Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 45, Senator Griff.
Aye.
Senator Hicks.
Aye.
Senator Kinski.
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Perkins.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. So now we'll go to Senate File 60. Thought we'd do them in numerical order, but we got you here and we've already had part of this discussion. Senator Case on Senate File, anything else on Senate File 60?
Mr. Chairman, in respect to the appropriation of the department, it's kind of the same discussion as before, although this would be a little easier for them to do, we think. But within the bill itself, you'll also see that there is kind of a cash flow supplement program created for the via the state treasurer's office to provide funding to the counties. And what this would involve is as they transition, the counties are going to have some cash flow issues. Mr. Tempty has been real helpful in estimating what those impacts might be. What this in the bill, it creates the treasurer's office is authorized to loan money to the counties with respect to this cash flow issue, and the money that's the repayments come out of the taxes that will come in, and actually we create that there's a guarantee with those taxes. We've gone up and down about how much that should be. When the bill came to us in the interim, it was $10 million. Then we went way up. We settled on 40 million. I think you'll have testimony from Mr. Tempty and Mr. Wilmarth that maybe it doesn't need to be quite so high. So, it's not in the appropriations section, but it is something I think appropriations also would have jurisdiction over and like to have you know about it.
And so, and what we've got in our section 3 is a $10 million appropriation.
Okay, standing committee amendment.
But the standing committee amendments can change that to $1.
No, 4 million.
No, 4 million.
Okay. We went crazy here. We went from 10 to 40 million. And then we added the $1 for the department. So there's two different things.
Okay. So, all right. And then if I understand this, is what you're doing is that you're taking the year, you're catching up 8% a year. Is it that simple?
It's pretty much that simple, Mr. Chairman.
Just taking the 1 year that you're catching up, you're saying you're going to pay 8% of that, and then you're moving towards where you're paying essentially, it's going to be essentially the same as the severance, except for that 1 year, and just pay 8%. So it'll take 16 whatever years for that to get paid up.
I think that works out, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
And it's kind of the same as the other bill, except for everybody likes this one better. They actually think it's clearer. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Tempty.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So, and then, so we've got, do you have anything to add with respect to the appropriation or anything that Senator Case was a little light on?
Mr. Chairman, I would just try to explain the fiscal impact I estimated as the bill was introduced, and then what that changed to as the bill was amended. If you look on page 2 of the bill, Mr. Chairman, this bill is actually putting 2 years worth of the ad valorem taxes on a payment program for calendar year 2020 and 2021. And at 8% per year, that would take 12 and a half years to pay back. So as introduced, and I just tried to do an estimate of the cash flow, what that would do to the cash flow of payments. And that actually created a cash flow shortage in excess of $250 million in fiscal year 2022. During the course of the Senate committee meeting, it was determined that it was not necessarily the intention to defer all of 2 years worth of taxes, but half of 2020 and all of 2021. With that change, it changed the cash flow situation in fiscal year 2022 to roughly $52.5 million. Of that $52.5 million cash flow shortage, roughly 10 million of that corresponded to the 12 mil school foundation program taxes that go directly to the state, which leaves $42.5 million as the cash flow shortage for local entities, counties, special districts. Actually, the biggest cash flow shortage corresponding to the 31 mills that is the K-12 local resource for school funding. And that amount is the roughly $26 million. That's why in the amendment is proposed an appropriation rather than a loan amount to cover the 31 mills for K-12 local resource. That amount would instead be appropriated from the LSRA directly to the school foundation program to cover that 31 mil cash flow shortage.
And so that's Dean, that's an estimate. And so I guess you'll actually do the computation of the time, and that's what the actual amount that would be transferred from the LSRA. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Case, I believe it was just set as an appropriation for that amount. That's the best estimate we have
right
now.
But my point is that that's not moved until it's not moved, and the appropriations isn't tapped until the distribution of the money that's not there is actually to be distributed. And by then, you know what the actual amount to be distributed is. Is that not correct?
Mr. Chairman, I think I might defer to Matt Wilmarth. He is much more well-versed in regard to how those K-12 cash flow issues go.
Well, that's about as glowing an endorsement as you can have. So, Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Wilmarth, LSO, Senior School Finance Analyst. As Mr. Timpty indicated, LSO's estimate with the impact of delaying 50% of the calendar year 20 payments over the course of the next 12 and a half years, lower school district resources by approximately $26 million for next fiscal year. How it works in the K-12 arena is the Department of Education actually estimates the tax collections on production year 20 to school districts for fiscal year 22 next summer. And based upon this change, that estimate will be about $26 million lower than what districts will receive under current law. And so each district is guaranteed a certain amount of funding from the foundation program. And with this change or proposed change from the standing committee amendment, will lower the estimated revenues to school districts, meaning the state will have to pick up that remaining balance and pay it out over the course of fiscal year 22 next year. And so this appropriation is in addition to the transfer at the end of each fiscal year from the LSRA to ensure that $100 million remains in the school foundation program account. So this is
yeah, I understand that, Matt.
Okay.
But when we get to the amount, you make that estimate. You'll make that estimate next summer, like you always do, and that's what will be the amount of the appropriation. Correct? Is that not correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. The 26 million is our estimate based upon the most current revenue forecast from Craig.
And so what would happen if your estimate was, if this appropriation ended up being too low, what would be the result?
Mr. Chairman, there could be a couple different approaches. One could be the Department of Education requests a additional appropriation through their 23-24 biennial budget request effective immediately to pay the remaining amounts to school districts for the biennium. The other approach is one could perhaps take the position that the superintendent's required to make those payments regardless of an appropriation amount from the legislature, and she can just pay those out of the foundation program account. I don't know if that's the superintendent's position, but one could interpret it that way, that she's required to make those payments of to school districts. But I think the cleaner approach would be to come back through through the 23-24 biennial budget request to true up any needed appropriations to address this issue.
Okay, thank you. And if there was if the amount was over appropriated, then that would, the unappropriated amount just wouldn't come out of the LSRA. This would be appropriated. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, it would, since it's being appropriated to the foundation program account, it would either be retained in the school foundation program account and lower the amount necessary needed at the end of the biennium from the LSRA.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you. I think I've got it. So the one was more complicated on the schedule, and this one's more complicated on the makeup. But anyway, pick your poison. So there we go. Thank you. I think I've got it. So members of the committee, any other questions? Senator Hicks. You're on mute, Senator Hicks.
Can you hear me? Mr. Chairman, a question for Dean. When we look through the wording on the appropriations in section 3 and they come up with the 10 million, or maybe even for Senator Case, it shows that the loans to be granted to the counties at an interest rate of 0%. And I don't remember what we typically drive from the LSRA is, whether that's, my recollection is it's 1.5%. It's not a lot of money, but what was the discussion about a 0% loan? We're making the counties whole at the expense of the state here. I'd like to see some interest rate in there, so at least encourage the counties, if they've got reserves, to use those instead of just borrow money out of the LSRA. So Senator Case or Dean, maybe one of you guys can help me out.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll kind of address it from a policy standpoint. Well, the truth is, most of this money is not funding the county. Most of this money is flowing through to fund special districts, all the other entities that the county collects money for. So the actual money for running county government is far less than half. And so that's a bit of a problem. The rest of the entities, including whether we do school districts or not, think about it, they're state entities or they're special districts and so you could kind of prorate this down, but you'd have to kind of, it'd be pretty complicated to take and filter down and collect interest from all the special districts. And then, and the truth is, this is a sure deal. It's a cash flow situation. And the opportunity costs for the state with respect to our investments on short-term investments are pretty darn small because those aren't paying very well. And this is just the fact that they're pledging their mineral tax receipts against what they're getting paid, and it's really a cash flow. We talked about interest, we truly did, and then we decided it wasn't really appropriate. Most of these guys are just implementing what the state would have to do anyway.
Okay, thank you, Senator Case. Other questions, members? Okay, thank you. It's a pricey move, but like you said, at the end of the day, it's probably still cash flow. I guess it depends on how many minerals we produce in the next few years. So, and that seems to be iffier and iffier all along. So, anyway, off we go. Members, are there any other questions or other? Is there anyone else who's looking to give public comment on this, Karen? We've got Pete Obermuller just came in. We got Pete and Greg, Pete Obermuller and Bill Novotny are still in the room. Mr. Obermuller or Mr. Novotny, did you have comments on Senate File 60?
Chairman.
Mr. Obermuller, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete Obermuller, President of the Petroleum Association. I apologize that my camera chose a very inopportune time to decide not to work. So I do not have.
We're perfectly okay with that, Pete.
Okay. So sorry about that. Just real quick, Mr. Chairman, I don't, obviously you guys are looking at the appropriation, all that. I don't have comments on that related to Department of Revenue. I just wanted to make sure what wasn't getting lost in that discussion about cash flow and all of that is what we're talking about on SF60 in terms of this transition is that as early as 2022, operators will begin paying on a monthly basis, and in addition, paying that additional 8% back payments of 1.5 years worth of ad valorem. So as it relates to revenue to the state of Wyoming and money available for appropriations to the extent that it comes to you, but mostly it does go to schools. We're talking about ad valorem, essentially what you could expect for ad valorem in any given year, plus an additional 32 million every single year for the next 12 years. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't want that particular part to be lost in the discussion of a cash flow gap, which is a result of timing in the way that counties and schools deal with their budgets and all of that. Not so much in terms of cash flowing from my members to the state and to the schools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pete. We appreciate that. Any other, Bill, did you have any comments on this, on 60?
Mr. Chairman, if you can hear me, again, just on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association, reiterating our strong support for moving Senate File 60 forward with the corresponding appropriated amounts to allow us to begin the transition to monthly ad valorem payments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for either Bill or Pete from the members of the committee? I see we're already late for our afternoon session, but we'll finish up this bill. Thank you. Karen, I think is there anything, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Noble, anybody else? Being none, go ahead. Members, what's your pleasure with the bill?
Move the bill.
Been moved. You got a second from Senator Guru. It's a hefty price tag, but if you remember that the whole purpose of this, the two things was mainly to reduce the risk of outstanding and unpaid bills. It's highlighted by a bankruptcy of a coal company, and so that's one of the things that kind of has prompted this, and we did a lot of work to fix this with respect to the lien statute that we did a year ago. Will help with that, and this also will help by reducing that. We've got it does put a stronger burden on our mineral interest folks, but it also gives them a substantial transition period. So we're trying to address all the concerns. But anyway, with that, if there's are there any amendments on appropriations or anything else? Are we ready for the question? We appear to be ready for the question. Karen, if you'll take the roll.
Yes, sir. For Senate File 60, Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Hicks.
Aye.
Senator Kinski.
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Perkins.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you very much. And so, Senator Case, we'll see how you do this on the floor. It'll be interesting. I think that's all the time we have. We've got 50 we'll take up on adjournment, and maybe 44 we'll take up on shortly after adjournment. And I guess we'll stand at, if there's nothing else, we'll stand. Anything else before we adjourn, members?
Mr. Chairman, it was 50 we want to take up on adjournment, or were there two bills you wanted to take up on adjournment?
There's 50, and we'll see if we can get the minority floor leader to also re-refer 44. So there may be two.
Okay, 1544. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.